Hey, ladies and gentlemen, today is Thursday, April 30th, and we are going to talk about the Crucible Act 3, Part 2, which is page 101 to 120. And you guys, this is where it gets good, okay? This is the climax of the book. This is when the courtroom drama takes place. And all things get insane and crazy. So I'm not going to talk too much before we start reading, but I want you just to look at the essential questions from Act 3, Part 2. Once again, what is the ideal purpose of law, and how does human depravity limit the process of justice within a society? And also, we're really going to take a look at this hysteria and groupthink, I can't talk right now, and how they prevent and inhibit justice, because we're going to see definitely the hysteria rise during this courtroom proceedings. All right, now I want you guys to read Act 3, Part 2, page 101 to 120, and then there is no reading guide today. Instead, you're going to be doing a Flipgrid post as well as a discussion post. So return to the video once you've finished reading. All right, guys, welcome back. So there are 4 different sections that we're going to look at in this particular Act 3, Part 2. First, we're going to look at Mary Warren's testimony, okay? Mary Warren, remember, she works in John Proctor's house. She took Abigail's place, and she was a small character at the beginning, but now she's really a focus here. And she's going to arrive in the courtroom to testify, and the other girls are also going to arrive. Then we're going to look at John Proctor's confession of adultery. Okay, this is a big deal because he is going to put his reputation aside in order to try to save his wife. So we're going to see that why. And then we're going to look at Elizabeth's testimony. Why does she lie? Okay, this is a woman who's never lied. She has a very clean and upstanding reputation, but yet she is going to lie in court, and why? And finally, we're going to see this drama unfold as the hysteria and Proctor's reaction happens, and he finally confesses. All right, so we're going to be looking at that a little bit closer. All right, so now I'm going to take you to Act 3. And we are going to start on page 101. And we see that here, Mary Warren is arriving into the court. Okay, so Danforth turns to Mary, and Mary Warren, he asks her, how did this come to turn you around? Did Mr. Proctor threaten you for your deposition? Okay, so she has come to the court. Mary Warren has come to the court in order to tell the court that she had lied before, and that this is what the truth is. And so Danforth's saying, wait a second, is Proctor making you do this to save his wife? She says, no, sir. Whoops, I made that the wrong color. We're not, oh my goodness gracious. Clearly I can't do this. Okay, she says, no, sir. Okay, never did he threaten me. And so he's like, why are you coming forth now? And she says, I am with God now. So she's basically saying, Mary Warren is saying, I was lying before because I wasn't telling the truth. I was following what was evil, but now I'm with God and I'm going to tell the truth. All right. And then we see on page 102 that she says again, I am with God, I am with God. But she breaks into sobs and then opens the door, and all of these girls who've been accusing everybody enter, and Abigail enters, okay? And she is fearful. Mary Warren is terrified of Abigail, not the courtroom, not all of these men, but she's terrified of Abigail, okay? And Danforth says, sit down, children. Okay, so again, reminding us that these are young people. And so it says, your friend Mary Warren has given us a deposition, which she swears she saw familiar spirits and manifest of the devil. She claims as well that none of you have seen these things either. Okay, now children, this is a court of law, the law based upon the Bible, and the Bible writ Almighty God. Forbid the practice of witchcraft and describe death penalty thereof. Okay, so, but the Bible also punishes false witness. So he's trying to scare them and say, hey, listen, you're going to be punished for playing with the devil, but you're also going to be punished if you are lying in court. So you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, is what they're basically saying. Okay, now on page 103, we see Danforth questioning the girls, and he said, what do you say about Mary Warren's claims? What do you say to all of these things that she said? And Abigail says, it's a lie. So she stands by her story. She is not going to confess. She's not going to say that Mary is correct. She's going to stand by her story. And so this is really the precipice of me versus you, my word against your word. And they're trying to decipher what is actually the truth. All right, let's move forward to page 106. And page 106, we see that Mary Warren subtly is talking very loud or very soft. She says very faintly, no, sir. Because Hawthorne says, may you never saw no spirits, Mary, were you never threatened or afflicted by any manifest of the devil or the devil's agents? And she says very quietly, no, sir. Okay. And then he even says, I can't hear you. And then she repeats pretense, sir. So she's talking very softly. And the reason she's talking softly is because she's looking in the direction of Abigail Williams. She is terrified of Abigail. So he asked her, can you faint now? Can you act, pull up this witchcraft? And she says, no, I cannot faint now, sir. I can't pretend. Okay, so she's saying, I cannot pretend. She looks as though she's searching for the passion to faint, and she says, I can't do it. I cannot do this. I never saw any spirits. So we're really seeing her stick to her story of truth, but she is very afraid of that Abigail Williams. Now, on page 107, we see Abigail describe the hysteria at the bottom, or Mary describes hysteria at the bottom and how she was swept up in it. She says, I cannot tell you how I did it, but I heard the other girls screaming, and you, Your Honor, you seem to believe them. And it were only a sport in the beginning, sir, so I was only pretending, but then the whole world cried spirits, and I promise you, Mr. Danforth, I only thought I saw them, but I did not. Okay, so she is explaining what it is like to be part of groupthink and to be hysterical. At first I was just going along with everything, but then it became more and more, everyone was believing it, so I just stuck with my guns, and I just kept doing what everyone else was doing. Now on page 108, Danforth gets mad at Abigail, and what happens is Abigail actually asserts her power. So he says, vengeance is terrible on them that take life without cause. Is it possible, child, that the spirits you have seen are an illusion only, some deception that may cross your mind? So Danforth is saying to Abigail, are you lying? And she says, why, this is a base question, sir. So she actually stands up to Danforth. And she starts to threaten Mr. Danforth. She says, to be mistrusted is questioned. I do not mistrust you. She says, let you beware, Mr. Danforth. Think you to be so mighty that the power of hell may not turn on your wits? Beware of it. Okay, so she is actually going to take it up a notch. She starts to blame Danforth and say, look, I have the power to accuse you too, so don't think that you are free of my accusations. So then she starts full on hysteria. So this is really where things are climaxing, okay? She's going to pretend here that she is seeing things, that the witchcraft is taking over her, and she's going to point her this situation toward Mary Warren. And Mary Warren screams, Lord, save me. Okay. And then we see John Proctor finally realizing that he is going to have to do something, right? Proctor is going to have to change. He's going to have to tell the truth, or his wife is for sure going to die. So he leaps at Abigail. He grabs her by the hair, pulls her to her feet. She screams in pain. Danforth cries, what are you about? Hawthorne and Paris calls, take your hands off her. And all of a sudden, Proctor yells, how do you call heaven? Whore, whore. And excuse me for using that word, but I'm going to use it a few times because it's in the text and it's very important because this is a big deal. That was shocking to the court. He jumps and yanks on her. And then he begins to realize that nobody is going to listen unless he tells the truth. And so he again says it is a whore. And then he confesses. He says, I have known her, sir. I have known her. And he's trembling. His life collapses around him. He realizes that he has to let go of his reputation in order to save his wife. And so by saying I've known her, he's saying I've known her biblically. We have slept together. We had an affair. And they say, are you a lecher? He's like, yes, this is what I've done. And you need to know the truth. Okay, now on page 110 at the bottom, he says, God help me, I lusted, and there is promise in such sweat, but it is a whore's vengeance, and you must see it. I set myself entirely in your hands. I know you must see now. So he's saying the whole purpose of all of this hysteria, of all of this drama, of all of this death and finger pointing, all has been pointed back to the fact that she, Abigail, wants John Proctor to be hers. And all of this is why she is acting this way. Okay, now we see that Elizabeth is now going to come into the scene. All right, so John Proctor's now confessed. His wife Elizabeth doesn't know that he's confessed. Okay, and so they can't just take his word for it. They have to have evidence. So they're going to bring in his wife to corroborate his story. Is in fact he an adulterer? But Elizabeth doesn't know that he's confessed to the court, okay? So they have her stand, or he and Abigail stand so that they're not facing Elizabeth, and so she has no idea. And then they ask Elizabeth, did your husband in fact cheat on you? And she says, on page, 113, did your husband turn from you? On page 113, and she says, my husband is a godly man, sir. Then he did not turn from you, and she says, no, sir. Now, if you notice on the page 111, Proctor says that his wife has never lied. She has never lied, okay? So in order to corroborate his story, they're going to ask Elizabeth if she has indeed been cheated on, and she says no. So why does she say that? She says that because she wants to save the reputation of her husband. She does not know that he's confessed here. Okay, so now we see the hysteria really take hold. And so on page 114, Abigail realizes that, she is going to have to take it up a notch. All right, she's threatened Danforth. Proctor's now told the truth. So what is she going to do now? And so what she does is she starts to act completely wild and stares up to the ceiling and starts screaming. Okay, she starts screaming and she's pointing to people. She's transfixed. Then the girls also start screaming and they jump on the bandwagon and they start to act as if Mary Warren is causing them to do things, to do all of these things. And so then we see that Mary is freaking out. She's like, what am I going to do? If I stick to the truth, then these girls are going to accuse me and I'm going to be put to death. So then she jumps back onto the bandwagon with the girls and she actually turns away from Proctor. Okay, and so he says, you guys are liars. You are all liars. I cannot believe that you guys have done this. And everybody is turning from this situation. And so what we see on page 118, Abigail actually takes Mary Warren back into her arms because Mary Warren jumps onto their bandwagon and acts crazy. And she says, Abby, I will never hurt you no more. They all watch as Abigail, out of her infinite charity, reaches out and draws sobbing Mary to her and then looks up at Danforth like, look, see, this proves that what I've been saying is true and that Proctor is the devil. And then what is Proctor going to do? And Proctor says this very shocking statement. He says, God is dead. He says, God is dead. And then he says, on the last page 120, you are pulling heaven down and raising up a horse. So he's screaming to the court and saying, listen, you are refusing to listen to the truth, and you are listening to a girl who her whole purpose of doing everything is vengeance, and that is who you're allowing to control you and to put people to death, which would actually be an interesting ending to the story, but it's not. We still go into Act 4. All right, now I'm going to take you guys back really quickly to the slides, and we're going to, just a quick reminder. First of all, after reading, make sure that you guys post to Flipgrid. You're going to choose a line or passage from Act 3, and then you are going, oh my goodness, seriously. So you're going to do from Act 3 that you want to perform for your classmates. And I've really, really enjoyed what you guys have been doing. Some of you have been creatively reading. I would love to see you guys even take it up a notch, maybe act out the hysterical scene in the courtroom, but just have fun, be silly, go over the top with this in a recorded 2 minutes or less video. Be creative. Okay. Then you also have to do your discussion post. So post your answer to these questions under the discussion question, the Crucible Act 3 link on Google Classroom. You should write a minimum of 3 to 5 sentences providing your answer. And you should also read your classmates' answers and perhaps even respond to them. The questions are, why does John Proctor ultimately admit his adultery before the court? What does this action suggest about John as a person? Why does Elizabeth deny her husband's affair before the court? Why would she lie? And why does Proctor exclaim, God is dead, at the end of Act 120? All right, guys, that's it for today. I look forward to seeing your post and your Flipgrids. Have an awesome day.